Welcome to the podcast, Ghosts, Demons, and Murder, Oh My. My name is Hayden Crook, and I will be your host for today's episode on the Flatwoods Monster, Mothman, and the Grafton Monster. I would like to welcome my special guest today, who is an avid Fallout 76 fan and is here to explain some of its cryptid lore. I would like to thank Jeff for joining me today on my podcast. Go ahead and introduce yourself as much as you want, as less as you want, and then we'll dive into the discussion.
Yeah, I'm Jeff, and I've been playing Fallout 76 since day one. So I've been playing it quite a bit, and yeah, I've countered a lot of the cryptids, a lot of the a lot of the areas that I've seen in the game. So yeah, definitely.
Alrighty. So the first cryptid is the infamous Flatwoods Monster. And for like those people that like are kind of just barely getting into cryptids or maybe know just a little bit, I just wanted to do a brief background on this cryptid before we dive into the discussion. And we're going to be doing this for each the same format for each cryptid that we're going to talk about today. So, the Flatwoods Monster is a creature in real life West Virginia folklore, reportedly sighted near the town of Flatwoods in 1952 by two brothers and their friend, following a bright object crossing the night sky. In pre war West Virginia, near the town of Flatwoods, many claim to see a dark, mysterious figure with glowing eyes. Colton Pickens claims he was taken onto its spaceship and subjected to experimentation, but his account was dismissed by police. After the war, there are accounts of wastelanders being taken, only being able to recall a blinding light afterward. So now we'll tie that into Fallout 76 and kind of how the two compare, I guess. Um, so yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, when encountering the Flatwoods monster, um, it's very, very random. You could be anywhere in the game. Specifically, it likes to haunt forests, I would say. So, like if you're in a forest or just like kind of out of a town, it usually will come for you. It's very random. You'll first hear a humming noise first. That's your first indication that there's something wrong. It's humming and it just starts buzzing, and then you don't know where it's coming from. Um, Specifically, it does like to do these like psychic mind blast attacks of sorts, with like a purple energy that it shoots out at you. Um, the worst part about the about it in the game is that it constantly does teleport around, so it's kind of hard to take it out so quickly. If you do find it, you can either, if you got the equipment and the weapons for it, you could try to fight it and take it out, or just run for your life and try to seek shelter somewhere, or just keep running until it gets bored with you. But yeah, it's definitely something to be kind of feared in the game because it just has no purpose other than just to attack any player that it finds.
Are there different like levels? Like, like in the other Fallout games, there's like legendary and that. Are there different types of the Flatwoods monster, or is there just kind of like one size fits all for 76?
Yeah, I have encountered several variations, just like the regular one, regular flatwoods. There was like a mythic one that I've encountered before. The mythic ones, when you get those ones, those are going to be the extremely powerful ones that are high level. Generally, depending on your player level, most of like your enemies in the game will usually cap at anywhere from like 50, or depending on like if it's a legendary or a mythic, it could go up to like 100, which are the worst ones to fight. But yeah, and then you can find every now and then like a legendary one. Like I've seen one that was a legendary, and before they've changed the game around, they used to, like, anytime you fight a legendary, you get it halfway through its health, and then it triggered a completely restore of its health. So you had to keep like taking it out. It's kind of like one of those Final Fantasy bosses. Like you think you killed it, nope, it just restored its health and it's coming back again.
right. And then I had a thought, but long day at work. I was gonna ask a question about it because you said there was different ones. Oh, I know on like some of the other Fallout games, like certain like monsters or enemies or whatever, they were resistant to like certain weapons. So you said it shoots out like a kind of like a telekinetic power. So is it immune to like energy weapons and that kind of stuff, or
Yeah, it is definitely durable. Using ballistic weapons is usually better to fight it because it does have a high energy resistance that I've noticed. And um, I believe when you do play the game, there are usually there's a card, a perk card. I can't remember the name of it, but a perk card that allows you to see like the stats of whatever like monster creature enemy you're fighting to like let you know like weaknesses and usually that will give you like a good idea like oh this is what I can use to take it out. But playing a game online like this, it's kind of hard to attach that card right away because it's a live game. So you can't just pause and say, oh, let me get this card installed so I can see what I'm working with here. But yeah, I usually fight it with ballistic weapons. Always range is what I usually go with because if you get close, it just teleports and goes, further away from you and just likes to attack you from a distance. It doesn't when it does get up close, it does release like kind of like a sonic wave, like almost like a bomb on you, and it will do like a lot of damage. So that's kind of like its last resort attack sometimes that I've noticed.
gotcha. And then design, like, do you know like what it looks like normally, like what it's been described, or not really?
So as far as it's a very unique design. It's not the typical alien. It's more or less. It looks like it's kind of in a like a half pod of sorts, and it floats. The bottom half is mostly silver. You'll see some lights on it, kind of glowing lights, usually purple. Upper half is just like a green kind of body, with glowing purple eyes. Um, and it kind of looks like it's like riding chariot almost, or just riding a throne, and the way it looks, it just looks very very lavish for the game itself, just as far as like you know not the typical monster or the typical Zeta aliens, because in the game and all the other games too, there's the Zeta aliens. And if you've ever played any of the other previous Fallout games, any of I remember the Fallout 3 game when you have the Zeta um, encounter DLC, you actually come across abomination. So it kind of brings to light where what if the Zeta aliens experimented and did some type of genetic like modification to themselves to make this specific Flatwoods monster to hunt certain people down or something, like they're like a class of sorts is what comes to mind to it.
Okay, so you're thinking maybe they're trying to do like a hierarchy type thing, okay,
Yeah,
that would be
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. It would be because even in Fallout 76, they do have seasonal events for the Zeta invasion, and there are certain areas where you go to fight the Zeta aliens, and they're the typical like the grays, but they're with green skins instead, and yelling and screaming at you in their alien language that you can't comprehend. You're like, okay, what are you talking about? It's like, do you want a cookie? What do you want? Like, but
That
yeah.
was, oh, sorry. That was one of the harder DLCs for me because I had really shitty weapons.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
I purchased it and then I just went straight into it from my save, and I hadn't played in years, so I didn't check my inventory, and I just went to the beacon or whatever, and it was
Mm,
hard for me. There were a lot of times like I wasn't sure I was gonna be able to get past it because I wasn't equipped. I just mostly
yeah.
I was like, oh, the energy weapons will work, and it just no. they were like
Oh,
resistant to it. So I was like, shit.
yeah. A lot of the Zeta aliens in the game are resistant to energy, so it's ballistic. Um, and it's always a good idea to bring just like a minimal amount of like your trusty weapons that you know that are going to be good for damage. So you're not weighing yourself down because once you get into that DLC, you can't come back to Earth and you're kind of like stuck.
Nice. Okay. And then in my notes, some events, two events for the game that I looked up that they posted on the Fallout wiki page is Campfire Tales and Invaders from Beyond with the Flatwoods Monster specifically, but I don't know. Um, Before we started recording, you said they're constantly like doing events and updating the game, so maybe like later on they'll do more events. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I mean the Flatwoods Monster. You don't see them in the events as much. I know the Invaders from Beyond that you'll see them every now and then in that game or in that event, I should say. As far as the Campfire tells, that one is very rare that you ever find the Flatwoods because it's usually when you do that quest, it's just a random quest, like it that just randomly comes up on a on a ribbon at the top of the corner of the screen that says, "Hey, this is going on right now. Do you want to join this event?" And um, most of the time it's usually either like a Wendigo or can't remember. There was like usually like another monster that usually comes around. But yeah, I don't usually see the Flatwood Monster in the Campfire Tales, but the Invaders from Beyond, that one when I did that one, I would see it randomly sometimes, but it wasn't all the time. It was just it's more or less an enemy that's there, but they don't utilize it as much. Like it's just a random encounter from what I've seen.
So you're pretty much saying like those kind of just do hints, but like you would like encounter it randomly, like more often than focusing on those events specifically then?
Yeah, you would encounter the Flatwoods Monster out in the wild more than you would in these events, I would say. Um, but yeah, the cryptid does like to spend its time like outside of town, so it doesn't like to be anywhere near any settlements or like any major areas that other monsters or creatures or enemies are at. Like it just likes to be like in solitude and it's like in itself, like out in the woods somewhere. So but yeah, it's usually random encounters and yeah, it's fun when you find it. It's because you don't expect to find it.
Interesting. Well, thanks for sharing that. I didn't know all that. Like I said, I haven't played it in forever. Cryptid 2 is gonna be Mothman, one of my favorites. I love Mothman. Um, let's see. So I found in my research, I found the official like newspaper article from Google News. So I was going to read that because I thought that was interesting. So this was from the Gettysburg Times, December 1st, 1966. It says monster bird with red eyes may be crane. Point Pleasant, West Virginia. The mysterious Mothman was still at large near this normally quiet Ohio River community, but the excitement he caused is dying down. The excitement began 2 weeks ago when Mr. and Mrs. Roger Scarberry and Mr. and Mrs. Steve Mallet, all of Point Pleasant, spotted a large white apparition flying at high speed following their car. They told a deputy sheriff it looked like a flying man with 10-foot wings. They said it was about 7 feet tall with large red eyes. These reports brought curious crowds to the Mc- McClintock Wildlife Station where the incident occurred. Volunteer fire department members had helped keep traffic moving. Words are hard sometimes, and the type they used is weird. But suspect is Sandhill Crane. It says during the next 3 days, at least 8 persons reported various similar creatures. On November 18th, two volunteer firemen, Captain Paul Yoder and Benjamin Enix, said they saw what definitely was a very large bird with a large red eyes. Dr. Robert L. Smith, Associate Professor of Wildlife Biology at WVU, said the descriptions all fitted the sandhill crane, the second largest American crane, which stands almost as high as a man and has a wingspan of more than 7 feet. He said the red eyes could be the large circles of bare red reddish flesh around the crane's eyes. Smith said the bird apparently had wandered out of its natural migration route. So that's interesting that they thought that was a bird. If you don't know about Mothman, the Mothman is a winged creature notable for a wave of reported sightings in the mid 1960s. The Mothman has since become a famous cryptid in pop culture. In the region of Point Pleasant, it is considered a harbinger of doom associated with several tragic events which occurred there. Most who saw it were gripped with terror. Some were sporadically struck blind. Some or similar sightings had been sporadically reported across the South and the East Coast since the late 1800s. During its historic rash of appearances between November 1966 and December 1967, it was believed to cause strange dreams among the folk of the area. It has coincided with a flap of UFO sightings in the same time and place. Mothman has come to be strongly associated with UFOs. So yeah, nobody's really sure what Mothman really is. There's a book, 1975, The Mothman Prophecy by John Keel, which I want to read. And then, yeah, there was just a lot of supposed sightings, and of course the collapse of the Silver Bridge. Um, After that, Mothman kind of dipped out after the Silver Bridge, so they said that he was like a messenger, harbinger of doom for that area. So I know a lot of people love Mothman. I love Mothman. So how is he in the game? Is he pretty lore accurate?
I would say not really lore accurate as far as like when in real world cryptids. Mothman just does his thing. But in the game itself, there's actually different ones. There's different versions. So there's the very hostile one, which you're gonna find that has like the red eyes. That one, if you find it in the wild or in any events, sometimes it basically will come in and attack you. It uses a lot of like sound waves to attack you, and it kind of uses. It's hard to explain. It's more or less like it sends its like scales at you, like shoots it at you, or it's more or less like a shadow of sorts. So it's very dangerous, and that one is also kind of similar to Flatwoods, where when it comes for you, you don't know until you just hear the buzzing noise. And Mothman, when you encounter it in the game, it loves to like pounce down at you from above, and like sometimes you don't even know it's there until it just comes and hits you, and you're like, "What the heck?" Um, but yeah, there's the hostile one, which is with the red eyes. There's the one that's with purple eyes. That's the wise one. That's the one that's more or less the nice one, or the one that's not gonna attack you. But there's a particular events that you can do. It's like lighting this beacon in this lighthouse that you can do at certain times during the day, and you basically have to go and collect certain materials, fluorescent materials from kind of like fireflies of sorts. You get the bioluminescent fluids that they give out, and you have to use it to light up the lighthouse. And when you completely, fill it up and you're done, the wise Mothman just shows up right there in front of everyone and grants you extra experience for an hour or so. So basically, it's there to help you in a way where it's there. And then there's a third one that is very, very random and rare. It's one with green eyes. And anytime I've seen that one, it's just there to observe you. It doesn't do anything. It just watches you. And it's kind of creepy at times. And you're like, because you'll just be walking in the forest or walking somewhere. And then it just like, you look over it, green eyes, and you're like, wait, is that a Mothman? And it's just staring at you. And you can actually go up to it, and it'll stay there and watch you the whole time. So it's kind of creepy.
It doesn't make noise or anything.
No, it's super silent. It's just there. I've encountered it a couple times. In the game there's I believe I can't remember the enlightened ones or the cults of Mothman that basically follow you or that follow the Mothman. There are times when I actually have gone to some of their camps and like if you like take them all out, they basically like as soon as like all of them are gone, it just appears sometimes and it just watches you. And it happened to me once and then I did it again and then I was like, oh, it happened again. I was like, oh, this is random. It's like, okay, he's there to watch me take out his followers. So like, okay. But in the game, it looks like more or less a moth, especially with its wings. It's got a face of like it looks like an owl. But it's just this big bulky thing where it's like with this, like you look at the Mothman statue in West Virginia, in Point Pleasant, it's like that skinny person, humanoid s style looking thing that everyone kind of associates it with. But in the game, it's more or less like it's a big creature, kind of like a chunky boy. Um, yeah, I would say it's probably anywhere from like 6 to 7 feet, maybe. It just varies. Sometimes, like I see ones that look kind of small, and then ones that look big. But I think it's just like it's just messing with you.
Interesting. And then have you seen the Mothman Prophecies movie? I think from like '05. Have you?
I honestly have not. No, I have not watched that movie.
I watched it a long time ago. I think we rented it
Mhm.
back when like video stores were a thing still.
Uh, yes.
I remember it being good, but I'm like now that I'm like really into like cryptids and like all this stuff, I'm like I need to rewatch it and see if it's like garbage, a dumpster fire, or if it's really that good.
Yeah, that happens with movies that are based off books. That it's like you watch the movie and then you read the book and you're like, huh, why is the book better? Or oh, the movie was better. It's kind of like you don't know where it's gonna go. Like it could be either or.
Right. And the book is on my list. And then some of his other
Mhm.
books. John Keel just kind of seems like an
Mhm.
interesting guy.
Oh yeah.
I listen to another podcast. It's like the Kryptonaut podcast, and I get a lot of my
Mhm.
info and like stuff from there. And that's a really good podcast too. Let's see. Okay, last cryptid is gonna be the Grafton Monster. One of the many cryptids in West Virginia folklore, the Grafton Monster is a popular myth that started in Grafton, West Virginia, when it was allegedly spotted in 1964 by a man driving his car. And in that story, from what I know and what I've heard, it's basically like a giant grayish blob, like without a head, that just kind of
Mhm.
wanders around. Um, how does that compare to like the game and stuff and all that?
It does actually fit very well with the actual lore. Because when you do actually encounter the Grafton Monster, it is a giant kind of creature it looks kind of like muscled, very muscular, but also like looks like it's just kind of grayish white blob almost, but it kind of looks almost like a just like a gorilla without a head almost, and then without all the hair. But definitely, yeah, it does very much kind of match with the lore in real life with it.
Okay. And when I was doing my research, it looked like it was featured in a lot more events. Have you encountered more of those than kind of the other cryptids we've talked about, or maybe people have experienced, or do they, does the Grafton Monster kind of appear and show up more than some of these other ones?
So I don't really see the Grafton Monster in too many events. I know there's a few events recently that they started like it just randomly shows up sometimes, like as a just like as a legendary monster to fight at the end when you've fought all the other little minion monsters or whatever, or the enemies. But it does show up. It actually can show up quite early in the game if you travel, because when you come out of Vault 76 and you head south, and get to the first town, um, if you keep going further down south, to Charleston, the capital of West Virginia, you actually can encounter it right there. The first time you encounter it, I believe it's around like a level 20 is where you can usually find it. And it's just in a kind of like a big giant ditch near a railroad, and it's just wandering around, just hulking around. You're just like, and if you sneak up on it, you can actually like, you can kind of take it out, but it's it's more more of the easier ones to take out. It's not one that's going to be difficult to take out.
It's not like the
Mhm.
fourth one when you have to fight that death claw right off the bat.
Oh no, no. Oh yeah, and what is it? When you're saving them, Preston and all them in the beginning. Yeah, that one is. Because I recently replayed Fallout 4, and I did it on the PS5, as the like PS5 updates, and they just revamped a lot of things, and somehow they decided to make the Deathclaw like an obscenely powerful enemy for some reason. I was like, oh, I was like, you guys umped it a little bit. But yeah, in 76 with the Grafton Monster, yeah, I mean, it's one that you can take out easily. It is very hostile when it does encounter or see you. Like it will come for you, and it's slow, sluggish, so it's easy to kind of like dodge its attacks, especially when it throws these kind of like oily acid blobs that it throws at you. It's like it pulls it from its skin and it starts chucking it at you, and you're like, you can dodge it easily, if you play it right. But yeah, and when it gets close to you, if you let it get close to you, then it's going to use its massive arm to just beat down on you if you get too close to it.
Nice. So what would you say, or like which one do you think's like the most powerful or like the toughest cryptid, maybe like in 76?
In 76, the toughest one, if I'm trying to think about that, because a lot of them are really, really, really strong. The Wendigo is very difficult sometimes. That's a really crazy one. But the one that everyone always has difficulty with is the sheep squatch. I don't know if you've heard of that one. It's just a random one that they made up for the game, and um, it's when you get that, it's particular like missions that you can get it on, or it just random encounters that you'll find, and it varies. It can be either like very weak or extremely strong, mythical or legendary. Um, the sheep squatch is something that can bring some nightmares, because it not only can come for you and attack you with its claws, it also shoots these like barbs out of its skin towards you. Like if you're keeping your distance and it can't get to you, like if you're on a ledge or something, it'll start just like shooting spikes out of its skin towards you to like get you, because it's like like, well, I'm going to shoot something at you now.
So it's basically like a Yao Guai on crack, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean the Algoi are easy to take out. The sheep squatch is just it's insane. But there's another one, particular mission, the Colossal Wendigo. That's another one that's also very difficult too, that comes to mind. Um, there's one mission where it's where you nuke one of the towns, one of the mines, I should say. Um, I wish I can remember the name, but it's further up north, near Grafton, I should say. And when you nuke this town, you open up this mine and you go in, and it's just this giant Wendigo. Like it's, I would say maybe about 12, 13 feet tall. It's got three heads, giant arms, and it's terrifying as well too. It's uh, that one requires like a lot of team, build, to like people working with you, or like you can actually, you know, the fun part about Fallout 76 is like you can actually like just show up. You know, you don't actually have to join a team. You can just show up and people can just be like, let's attack this thing together, and no communication, just attack it. And that monster alone uh can be very terrifying as well too.
So have you like killed it? Have you
Mhm.
like fought it yourself or just kind of heard about it?
Oh no, I fought it. Yeah, it's it is a very difficult enemy, and I've seen players play, you know, fight it without any power armor and with power armor. Like I personally have not really perfected any build but myself, but I usually play it with power armor. I just make sure I put like my perk cards down for power armor and heavy guns. And um, the worst part about fighting that is that it unleashes like kind of like a sonic wave of fear, and um, it basically anyone that's within range, like if you're trying to fight it and it uses that sonic fear wave at you, it makes your actual character, your avatar, just starts running away, and you can't control yourself. Like you can't control the character where you're going, and it's deep in this mine, so there's like a lot of like death traps nearby, and you can just like run into like spinning blades or run into these spikes or run into fire, and you're just like you're screwed if you if you you know if you're running into it and you can't stop yourself.
Yeah, because I'm gonna have to look that up on YouTube and kind of see because that sounds interesting.
Yeah, and then it does summon other Wendigos to fight you, any character, yeah, any players as well too. So um and it's like you think the Wendigo is bad, but you got like a dozen Wendigos coming at you at once. That's yeah, that's heavy and terrifying as well too. So especially in like in a closed off like mine area too. So that's like claustrophobia right there too. So yeah.
Nice. I might. It's still online only, huh?
Yeah, it is an online only game. Yeah, unfortunately they don't allow offline with it. It's just yeah, it's how it is with it.
Hmm. I might bite the bullet one day when I'm not as busy with everything.
Yeah.
And then what would you say is like the weakest or like least powerful cryptid in your opinion in 76?
Um, that's let's see. I mean, there is a bunch of them. I know the Beast of Berkeley, the wolf, that one is very fairly easy to get to take out. The Snallygaster, even though it looks kind of terrifying, it can be easily killed. Like you just take it out and it's so I think I would say one of those two would be more the easiest ones to take out in the game.
Nice. Are there any cryptids like maybe that you'd like to see them add or just anything you'd like to see them do like in the future maybe?
I know they keep adding more. I haven't played it recently. I mean, I've been busy with other games. But I don't know, it would be kind of hard to say. I mean, they got some of the popular ones out there, so I would like to see one that maybe isn't as popular, or one that is very obscure. Maybe like the Chupacabra is a good one that I would probably like to see. You know, to it be because you know Chupacabra is the goat sucker, so it could go after the sheep squatch like they're natural enemies. You know, kind of thing. That would be an interesting like storyline or concept. You know, in the future if they did something like that.
That would be like crossover tie-in all that.
Yeah, but
And then
yeah.
sorry.
Other than that, I mean, Bigfoot is another popular one too. So why that? I don't know if they added. I know they added something called the blue Jersey Devil, I think, but I can't remember. It's been a while, so I'm not sure if that was added or not. But that would be an interesting one to get in there too.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then like just follow in general, like what maybe like what location or maybe like theme or like would you like to see them maybe do like in the future?
Oh, see, with a lot of the Fallout games, it's always in the USA. It's always like in you know our neck of the woods. Um, I know. there was a lot of talk about like one in San Francisco that would be interesting. I know they just released a mod for Fallout 4 for Fallout London just recently too. Um, Sadly, I don't have a PC on console here, but that one's on, I think, specifically Steam or one of the online ones on PC only. Um, that would be interesting thing to do. Is just like somewhere like in Europe, and then get like all the old lore creatures, the monsters, from old like European lore in there too, kind of in there.
Ooh, like a ooh, they could like do like werewolves, Dracula, all that.
Yeah, that would be interesting because it's like you got a lot of European locations, and they could do like kind of zoned around like around Germany, France, maybe, or just around Central, or Eastern Europe as well too. That would be interesting to do.
Having my computer screen's all weird. Hold on. I
Oh,
don't know what's going on. It's just blank. Oh, there we go. Okay, we're good. We're good. I was worried. I was like, we're gonna lose
mm,
everything we just talked
no.
about. I'm trying to think of what. Ooh, yeah, like the European one would be cool, or maybe like a Middle Eastern, like with like genies and like
Oh, the
that. Or,
gin.
yeah, or maybe like China. Like they could do like a lot of cool like folklore with that.
That would be interesting. Because I mean, in the Fallout universe, China, you know, is blamed for a lot of the war. I don't know if you watched the Fallout series yet, the show, where they kind of it almost sounds like they kind of retconned the China, China bombing us, or bombing the U.S. Um, but at the same time, it's like it was all about talk, but they don't show that's what happened. So still, but like in Fallout 4, there is a mission where you actually meet a ghoul who's a Chinese soldier in the submarine, and I think it was the Yaxi or the name of the submarine, and it's a mission that you just randomly get, like the one-eyed monster, I think is what it is, because this kid sees like this monster, and it's like, oh, it's some type of like sea monster, and you go out and swim, and you find it's actually a submarine, and you find there's a ghoul who's a Chinese soldier, and you either have the option of either taking him out right away because get revenge for the USA, or just help him. And if you help him, he gives you the what is it? He gives you the ability to launch nukes on your enemies, like the big nukes, you know, and certain spots that you can like throw a beacon. But he talks about how he wants to go back to China to find out, what happened to his family and everything, and as well too. So um, it's interesting because it's like, okay, so what did happen, in China as well too, with all the war that happened.
Right. I am kind of worried about like the future of video games right now too, because I heard on the radio this morning at work that a lot of voice actors are gonna do their own version of a strike now because like
Oh,
yeah, so I'm like, I wonder if that's gonna delay a lot of video games now and stuff.
yeah, that definitely can delay a lot. I know a lot of games have had some, you know, issues with like underpaying their voice actors and actresses. I've heard about it. Can't really comment or be an expert about it, but I mean, again, I've heard about it happening. Um, One that kind of upset me a while back ago that happened. The game Destiny. I did play that for a while, and the game had um, Peter Dinklage, who voiced this companion you get called Ghost, and it's like um, this device creature or whatever. I can't give you the actual name, but it's just this companion that just like resurrects your character and then kind of guides you and helps you with like missions and gives you updates and everything. Um, and I remember like his voice and everything. And I was like, oh, it's so perfect for this, this little thing. Um, and then one day, I can't, I can't remember what happened. They said it was just due to scheduling conflicts or something that they completely removed all of his voice acting and replaced him with Peter North, who does a ton of video games. So they added him in because apparently he's got a more freer schedule. So I was like that. I was like, well, I'm like Peter Dinklage is famous, but come on, so is Peter North. So like, what happened there? But yeah, that was like a thing that kind of upset me about when they replaced him.
Did they still pay Peter Dinklage for the time he spent, or no?
Yeah, oh yeah, they paid him. They gave him
Okay.
money. Yeah. How much money I don't know. That's yeah, not something that I'm aware of.
All right.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to talk about? Or
Uh, no. I mean, as far as I mean, with the cryptids and Fallout 76, I mean, it's definitely interesting how they bring them to life in the game. Um, the whole idea of it is just fascinating because it's Fallout 76 is, you know, 200 years before like Fallout 3, Fallout 4, and some of the other Fallout games too, give or take. So it's interesting how these creatures exist specifically in this area, but you don't see them anywhere else. Like you don't see them in other of the games too. So it kind of brings up to light like did we wipe them all out, or was it just they're just native to this area?
I didn't know that was the
Mhm.
timeline. I just assumed it was after all the other ones. I did not know that.
Oh yeah. So yeah, Fallout 76. So basically, so 2077, and then I believe it's like oh, I think anywhere from like 30 to 40 years after the bombs fall that the game kind of takes place there or thereabouts. So it's still kind of like fresh, like the war just was still fresh. I know there's some inconsistencies with like the timeline with like your characters like young, and then like all these people went in. So it's like, was your character a child, or like what did they get born in this vault? So it's interesting how like it's there but it's not there. Like they don't really explain it like how it happened, but yeah, it's definitely about roughly around 200 years early before the Fallout 3 and Fallout 4 games.
Good to know. Well, I guess we'll close it out then. So thanks for being my guest on here. I enjoy doing interviews. It's a lot better than me just sitting in our little office room and me just staring at my computer and just talking to myself. It's a lot better to do interviews.
Oh, definitely.
All right. So thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Ghosts, Demons, and Murder. Oh my. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast so you can get all the updates, information, and content that will be uploaded. Thank you for the support and for listening to my podcast. As always, I can be reached via email at haydencrook8@gmail.com. And this was part one of my West Virginia special. That's why we talked about some of those cryptids. Stay tuned for part two. I'm done with college for a couple weeks, so I'm gonna squeeze in time to hopefully record some more. So yeah, stay tuned for that, and thanks for listening.